Today, we're meeting an entrepreneur who is bringing the Irish language back to the masses through online learning and social media.
It still surprises me to think I'm a businesswoman. I'm the founder of my company. I'm a company owner. I'm still a teacher, but you can be both things.
No unicorns, no brands, just hardworking people who built their business from the ground up, sharing their experience so others can learn. Presented by Larissa Feeney from Kenore. This is Real Business Conversations.
That's just what we do.
Hello, my name is Larissa Feeney and I am the CEO and founder of Kenore Finance and Business Services. One of the most rewarding aspects of being an entrepreneur is having the freedom to create a career you truly love. But turning a passion into a thriving business takes more than just enthusiasm. It requires strategy, resilience, and the right mindset. Today, we're speaking with someone who has done exactly that. From teaching her first Irish lesson at just 7 years old to building a successful online business with over 200,000 followers, our guest has found a way to make her passion for the Irish language both impactful and profitable. We dive into the power of self-development, the role social media has played in her growth, and why following your passion does not mean ignoring strategy. It's a pleasure to welcome the founder of Irish with Mollie, Mollie Guidera.
Thank you so much, Larissa. What a pleasure it is. Thank you for such a generous introduction. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm just delighted to have you. And I have to say, well, Dia Ditch, is that correct?
Smerwich, Mahu, lovely.
And I do have to tell you that we have something in common, Mollie. What you and I have in common is that the two of us were removed from the Gaeltacht at 13 years of age.
Oh, we share the pain. What happened to you?
Well, now, I was removed from the Gaeltacht because I was caught smoking.
Okay.
And
I wish I had a reason like that, Larissa. That's a valid reason to be kicked out. Very valid.
Smoking. Now, I denied smoking for most of my life, but now my parents are no longer alive. So I can finally admit that, yes, I was holding a cigarette at 13 years of age. They asked me to leave the Gaeltacht on the train as well, just very similar to you. And the reason why I had to leave was because I was fined. Because I was caught smoking, there was a group of us caught and we were fined, I think it was £10. And because it was the last few days of the Gaeltacht, we didn't have any money left. So they phoned home and they asked our parents to pay the £10 fine. And my father said, if I'm paying £10, you're punishing me, you're not punishing her, you may send her home. And so I was sent home from the Gaeltacht.
That is brilliant.
So as I understand it, you were not sent home for smoking.
No, and I nearly wish I was. I mean, I was sent home with two young guys who had been drinking on the beach, I think. And I was caught saying 8 words in English. That's why I was sent home. And I just found this disgracefully unfair. I argued my case. I complained. I never got a warning. You know, they just kind of said, off you go. Back from Galway to Dublin. I cried my eyes out. My parents were livid. You know, they didn't like that at all, finishing early. And in the end, I think my dad was like, well, that is a bit unfair not getting a warning. So let's chat to the príomhaide, the principal. And I got a scholarship or a half scholarship for the following year. And I went back, became Kinnera, kept going back, became Príomh Kinnera. And they forgot they sent me home at all. And look at me now. So I'm still very bitter about it, as you can tell. But I do think that immersive and kind of strict way does help a little bit.
Yeah, it does. I know it does help. I mean, my youngest fella is now doing his 3rd year this year in the Gaeltacht, and it absolutely helps. But it did begin a love of the Irish language for you in a strange way.
It did, absolutely. I think it opened my eyes to Irish as a living language, you know, dancing, having your first kiss at the Gaeltacht, playing hurling, camogie, singing songs, getting competitive with other Irish colleges. It's a very kind of, transformative experience, I think, to take Irish out of the classroom and kind of have this freedom. You know, I was in an all girls school as well. So it was a chance to like meet new people and go to the Cayley and stuff like that. And it really brought it alive. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And I wish more children could attend the Gaelscoil, you know, the Gaeltacht, and spend their summers learning and loving Irish.
Absolutely. And I had a similar experience, even though I was, removed. I adored it. I absolutely adored it. And it's just a fabulous experience for a young person, I think. First time away from home, first time experience, all those things that you've described. Absolutely. Every child should get the opportunity, I think.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's not that kind of created a Gaeilgeoir out of me, because I think still there was this feeling at school like it is a subject, and in a way you're going to the Gaeltacht because you need to get an A in the Leaving Cert, or it's academic, really, the drive behind it. So I ended up not really rooting myself into the language until years later. I was teaching English, I was traveling around the world, and I started teaching one-to-ones online, and then the platform asked me, could I teach Irish? And I had good Irish from school, but I think that was more of a memory thing, like just being able to, regurgitate what they wanted to hear. But then when I started teaching, I kind of unraveled the way I had been taught and the way we see it in Ireland. Thankfully, I think things are changing drastically, and now people are opening their eyes to the value and the culture that it carries, and, how devastating it would be to lose the language. But it takes time, I think, and it's really a mindset and a shift in your focus and your awareness of the sounds of the language and how it's not complicated. It's very orthographically shallow, and it's such a beautiful, poetic, onomatopoeic language.
And I mean, hearing you talk about it like that, I think, oh goodness, I've missed something all these years, because that's certainly not the way we were taught it in school. Can I take you back then? Because you said that you were traveling the world. Were you teaching English as a foreign language? Is that what you were doing?
I was. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. And then the platform asked you to teach Irish. And how long ago was that?
That was about 8 years ago, more or less.
Okay.
And my reaction, so it was an international online platform called italki. It's still going, it's huge, and they're great advocates for vulnerable minority languages. Irish is listed as definitely endangered on the UNESCO Atlas of World Languages. And when they asked me if I could teach, because their kind of brand is we teach every language in the world. And I thought, well, I'm not sure they know that not every Irish person is fluent in Irish, and the relationship with Irish is kind of complicated in Ireland, and because of colonization and years of oppression, we don't use it as our first language. And I kind of thought, I wonder if they're aware of that, or if they just think, oh, there's a language, let's get a teacher. But once I started teaching, I realized the demand around the world is insatiable. COVID hit and my schedule was just, I could have opened 24 hours a day online, my calendar, and they would be full. It was incredible. This thirst, people were kind of also trying to escape their family during COVID and pursuing passion projects and kind of feeling, okay, what is a bucket list thing for me? Something I want to do before I die, or a big regret, and people who are interested in genealogy and linguistics, just so many people from all over the world passionate about our language and very proud, and when you're in that mind frame, you learn things quickly, when you have a method, motivation, and a mindset which really works.
And so at what point then did you start working for yourself?
Actually, around then. So I was teaching at language academies, and I taught on the Peace Boat, which is a UN-sponsored NGO which sails around the world fostering conflict resolution and peace studies. And I always felt a bit exploited by schools. I've never actually taught in a primary school or secondary school in Ireland, contrary to popular belief. But I taught at these language academies, and they're great fun, and they really built me as a teacher. But at the same time, you're teaching maybe 15 to 20 people. I taught children, teenagers, and adults, and you're getting paid as if you're teaching one of them. Or not even. They're paying a high price to have you as their teacher. And you're kind of too set in, this is your timetable. You teach after work. So you're teaching till like 11 p.m. at night or 7 in the morning. And after a few years of that, I just felt like these skills don't really match with this salary or this timetable. And teaching in other countries, it might be difficult to come home. And I loved it, but I knew it wasn't really sustainable, So I went fully online Firstly, I was teaching English. So I used to actually wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning and teach Russians online and, you know, all this crazy timetable too. But at least it offered me great flexibility and more autonomy. And it was a challenge, you know, because I think a lot of teachers tend to, you know, we definitely it's a labor of love, and you put your students first and you work. And it's not about money at all. And it's not about finding a job. You do love your work. Hopefully most teachers do, but
it is a vocation though, isn't it, Molly?
Definitely. Yeah. So, you know, I remember thinking, oh my God, like I was never putting my prices that high. I was teaching one-to-ones, and even raising my prices by €1 or $1. I kind of laugh thinking about it now, but I was really nervous to do that and kind of insecure, like, oh, will everyone leave? Will all my students just say, oh, she's greedy? And, you know.
And that's really normal. Like we hear that all the time, especially in service businesses, that nervousness and fear around pricing, because you're pricing your time and we don't value our time. And you're really worried about, as you say, will everybody just leave? And I know you're going to tell me that that's not what happened at all.
Yeah. That's really valuable to learn. You know, it should be taught at school, more financial literacy. But it's also something good to learn yourself through trial and error. So after years of teaching one-to-ones, I felt more and more confident in my Irish. I started studying more myself, traveling around Ireland, doing different courses. My students were just excelling, you know, even after half a year or 1 year from scratch, they were conversational. And it was all because I was creating my own curriculum, just how to love the language and why it's worth learning. And they were just amazing, you know, full of this passion and pride and energy for the language. And I realized I'd love to reach more people, free up my time a bit, not be constrained to, you know, I have to be there at this time on this day. I can do this work anytime. And I realized I was teaching the same stuff again and again, which is great. It strengthened my skills, but I could just record this and actually be freer to answer questions. So it works for everyone. And also with technology, I think it democratizes the language in a great way. And you can really spread so much information, you know, at the click of a button, and people can receive things for free. So it's much more accessible and affordable for people. And it means the whole business becomes scalable.
Yes. So that's what you found yourself doing, recording your courses, putting them online so that your customer could access the content whenever at a time that suited them. And you could be there to answer questions whenever they need you.
Exactly. So it's kind of a magic formula, because I do find I'm so available for my students that they feel they have a private tutor, but they have way more access than they would have had before. You know, if you're paying once a week or twice a week for a teacher, and I've been that student and teacher myself, you're not going to contact the teacher outside of lesson hours, and they're probably not going to respond to you. But my students can contact me day or night, whenever, and I respond within 24 hours. The other thing, I suppose, which is so important, is loving what you do, like you mentioned. If you really love it and you're always so eager to connect with your customer or your student, it's very palpable. You know, they can feel, oh, I'm not annoying her by asking her a question. Like, it's a welcome interaction.
There's a connection there.
Definitely.
And they almost feel part of a community. And that's really where I want to ask you about next, is your community. So growing as you have grown on social media, predominantly, as I understand it, how have you done that? How have you found it? What are the challenges that you've encountered along the way?
So yes, the community is the teacher. This is a kind of adage that I learned recently. And it's so true. You know, everyone is growing and learning together. Everyone's at their own pace. So that's the beauty of the courses. You don't miss a lesson. You don't have to catch up. You don't have to wait for anyone. You have on-demand access. And yet a huge community of global learners who are there and ready to share their experiences, you know, hold each other accountable. So we have a Telegram group, which is a bit like WhatsApp, with people chatting away all day, every day. It started, we were laughing like, oh, there's a night shift and a day shift because people are there constantly. I dip in and out during the day, and I can answer their questions. We have a thing, they call it my green pen, my fiann gloss. And it's like, they might write something about their day or send a joke or a recipe and then say, oh, the fiann gloss led the whole, like, your green pen, please. And I'll correct and highlight why we add an I or why there's a H there or whatever. So everyone's kind of learning from those corrections.
Is everybody learning from that as well? Everybody can see the interaction, can they?
Everyone can see. So they can contact me privately, but then a lot of people choose to write it in the chat. They meet up. There's a 24/7 Zoom open all the time. So people can meet there, practicing their speaking and listening. And I think it's so valuable. You know, it's a dream to have, like, they kind of call themselves, you know, an army of learners, and they're so kind, so supportive, helpful, funny. There's even a study that shows people studying Celtic languages are the happiest people in the world.
Oh, goodness.
And I think it's the language that makes you happy, but they're brilliant because they're able to answer the questions before I get to them sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Because that's what I was thinking as you were talking. I'm sure that they're correcting each other as well,
Exactly.
which would be fantastic. Yeah, it saves you doing it as well.
And also realizing it's all about community and confidence and coaching. You know, you don't have to be perfect. You don't learn overnight. And just having other people showing you it's great to make mistakes. It shows effort and it shows intention. And that's really what it's all about. That brings progress.
And how do you find your customer? How does your customer find you?
So social media has been incredible. I set up Irish with Mollie on Instagram and TikTok 2.5 years ago. And I think it's a fantastic way to share bite-sized nuggets. So a lot of people are intrigued, you know, they're learning about language in general, not just Irish or other things I like to share as well, about Ireland, you know, about culture. So that's been really great. And advertising on Facebook, Instagram, and I think that's it, Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. So the majority of your customers are on those two channels, are they? Facebook and Instagram?
Pretty much, yeah. And then I have a podcast and a newsletter. So when they're signed up to that, there's free resources and, you know, useful, usable materials that they feel, wow, I'm getting so much value. And then they might think, I want to take it a step further, or they realize, you know, I trust her. I want to pursue learning Irish, and I really feel like this is the best option.
And do you find that your customer comes to you, as you says, maybe listens to your podcast, reads your newsletter, follows you on Instagram or social media for a period of time, and then they sign up for a course? So it takes a little bit of time for them for you to build that trust in them?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the person. I think a lot of people, because there's a 30-day money back guarantee, and, you know, sometimes there's a bit of urgency selling which goes on, which I had felt slightly uncomfortable with in the beginning, because I thought, you know, you don't want to pressurize anyone, but at the same time, there's a 30-day money back guarantee, so they can change their mind. But if they're kind of aware, okay, there's a massive sale, like there's 50% off now for St. Patrick's Day, it makes them make a decision, and I know they're going to love it. You know, people are raving about the courses. So I'm very confident that it's a very good product. And I think people sometimes need a bit of a nudge to go, yeah, I do want to speak and enjoy and understand my ancestral language or my native language. So a lot of these things I've learned along the way have really helped in terms of nurturing the student body, and even people who had never heard about Irish before, they find themselves signing up. Another thing I do is free workshops. So I think they're brilliant in terms of, you know, offering something, spreading the language, and creating new sales. And people they enjoy the 1 hour free workshop and they say, yeah, I'm committing to this. And they get a discounted.
You're also very good though on social media. You're very natural on social media. I know for those people that are listening today to this, they will be asking, you know, did that come naturally to you? Because it's one of the more challenging elements, I think, of running a small business today, that you expected and you really should be showing up on social media. Did that come naturally to you? Are you naturally quite extroverted, or did you have to work at that?
Thank you for that lovely compliment. I think it was difficult. Definitely. It was a challenge in the beginning. And I remember the first week of, you know, with my ring light, putting my face on social media, also something I didn't feel very confident about. And talking with people who know a lot more about marketing than me, they were saying, this is really what works. You know, it's not about, you know, sexualizing yourself or showing off or, you know, here's my daily routine and come with me to get my coffee, etc. It's like a friendly, familiar face, a knowledgeable person sharing free stuff and generating that connection with their audience. If you see a person and you're learning from them online and you like their energy, you end up feeling like they're your friend and you know them. And it's weird, but it's psychological. You know, I do feel very close to a lot of my followers, even though we've never met, and they feel close to me. They see my face all the time. And that consistency, I think, is really important. But in terms of making videos, like my early videos were very straightforward. I don't think they were that captivating. They didn't get very many likes or shares. But I think the practice and the consistency made them better and better. And it helped me to find my voice and my style. So I was just teaching like, okay, 1 to 10 in Irish, a hey and a do, a 3. And it was pretty simple. And then maybe after 20 or 50 videos, and they were daily, maybe even 2 a day, I realized, okay, I want to make stuff that's actually very fascinating for me. I started researching more, going into deep dives about etymology. And I think that's when it really took off, you know, talking about things like the pulmonic ingressive, like the way Irish people go, yeah, 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 when they're agreeing with each other, and how that comes from Viking countries and it emigrated to Newfoundland, for example. These are the things that go viral, you know. And another thing, actually, I have a photo of her here. You know that piece of advice people say if you're public speaking, imagine you're speaking to one person who you love dearly and they're just smiling and filling you with praise. So I imagined my grandmother, who really inspired me. She was a Gaeilgeoir, and I dedicate my courses to her, that she was just like, she always wanted to see me on TV. It was her dream, you know. And if I was ever like mentioned in the school magazine or whatever, like she would print it off and frame it and things like that. So it felt a bit weird in the beginning to know I'm giving a workshop to like 2,000 people, but I can't hear them or see them. So that makes it easier. So it's funny how even with 200 and something followers, or 200,000, it's easier than rocking up to Ballina Arts Festival and talking to 20 people in a room. You know?
I get that. No, I get that. Yeah. No, absolutely. You can pretend that it's just you there, you know. And where are your customers based? They're not all based in Ireland, obviously, or?
No, not at all. So I'd say there are about 30% of them in Ireland and another 30% probably in North America, so US and Canada. And then the rest are UK, maybe 10% in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and then all over the world. Like, it would amaze you, like South Africa, Singapore, Japan, you know, Russia, everywhere. It blows my mind. I mean, maybe they're Irish people living there, but a lot of the time they're married to an Irish person, or they're just fascinated with the culture and the music, the literature of Ireland, and they've never even visited Ireland, and they're just really keen to learn.
So the language is part of it, but it's just for them, it's wider than just the language.
Yeah, I think they, you know, people outside of Ireland who aren't traumatized by the Irish education system, they connect that much quicker than a lot of Irish people. They realize very quickly, language is culture. They are fitche fuache lechela, you know, they're interwoven together. And to really understand the humor, the crack, the connection, the literature, the dance, the Gaelic games, all of these things, and the history of Ireland, the language makes a lot of sense, you know, to invest in that learning journey. And in Ireland, people can say things like, oh, the only language I care about is the one on my paycheck. And I realize, okay, you think it's a means of communication, but it is our culture. And even sometimes if I'm invited on a radio show, I remember some radio show asking me, but is it too late, Mollie? Is it too late now? You know, like, the language is dying, isn't it? And I was like, what a shame. You know, I know they're feeding what some of their listeners want to hear, but it is a lack of pride, and it is a colonized mindset, in my view.
And it's trauma from a childhood spent in classrooms and the way we were taught as well, for me anyway.
That's it.
Which brings me to my next question. How would you change the way children are taught Irish today if you were given the power to do that? What would you do?
So I would definitely include a lot more immersion in the classroom. I didn't go to a Gael school, but my teachers were quite positive about the language. My mum was a primary school teacher, so she would speak cúpla focal, couple of words here and there. So I think from the get-go, using Irish, to give directions, to chat away, to really fill the air with Irish, to get rid of exemptions and exams. The more I think about it, why are you saying to someone you don't deserve to learn our language because you can't get an A or a B or a C in an exam? To make it more relevant, meaningful and joyful. So to connect it with culture, to learn about mythology, all these incredible stories we have that are so helpful and valuable to learn about the ecosystem in Ireland and, the countryside and the development of our country. And I think, learning Irish dancing through Irish, learning Pel Gaelach, Irish football, things like that. And just kind of making it more of a living daily language and not a subject, not introducing. Of course, you can introduce grammar, and I do, and I love grammar, but you can actually make it really fun, make a song about it. If you're using it, then you don't need to learn it for an exam.
So would you remove it completely from, let's say, the Leaving Cert curriculum, for example, as one of those 3 subjects that the students have to do today?
I think I would lean towards doing that, but only because the syllabus or curriculum that I would create would be so powerful that there would be no need for an exam, basically. It would be like everyone's conversational. And why are you tested on your conversation? Then again, we do have English classes, of course, and we have literature and poetry, and that would be really interesting too.
Yeah. It's a different approach, though, isn't it? And what you're talking about is fostering love of the language, which is probably not done in the classroom. Certainly not in a formal setting that we've experienced. Now, whenever you talk about Irish, I can see from your face and your language that you love the language. And I suppose why we're here today is talking about the combination of passion and business. So it's great to love the language, but obviously you have to you have created a business out of it and generate a profit from it. So I suppose on that subject, did you always want to own your own business? Are there entrepreneurs in your family?
No, my family are not business oriented. I never thought about becoming an entrepreneur, although it makes a lot of sense now. I think we're sometimes affected by our environment, of course, and my school was quite academic, but it was like they were saying, you're not a success unless you go into law or medicine. And I think Ireland in general has this really kind of stringent approach to what success is. Like I mentioned, my mum was a teacher. I didn't think I would go into teaching either. I always wanted to be a writer, and now I'm writing my first book. But I think over time it just made sense because of what I loved to do and how actually when I was teaching English, I did it all for, time to travel. And I think that's maybe what entrepreneurs are doing. They're trying to create time in their lives and also enjoy their work, so they don't really call it work. But I don't think I really had any female role models who were close to me in my life. Thankfully I had strong women who were creative and caring and in different jobs and industries, but not really business women. And it's been a really interesting journey. And I think marrying my love of the language and what I do with the business aspect has been interesting. And I think I reconcile those ideas. People can think that business is dirty or making money is wrong. And I don't think it is. I think, of course, it all depends on your resourcefulness and how you structure your business and what you invest in. And I love giving back to the Irish community as well. And, thinking of ways that I can support different initiatives and projects. And also the fact that I'm doing it to spread the language, and I get so many incredible pieces of feedback, people who say it's been such a transformative journey. So I think I'm very lucky, and I'm very, it's a very fulfilling job to have. So I'm glad, to see this other side of business that can be, very societally important and contributing.
What surprised you, or what has surprised you about running a business, Mollie?
I think a lot of things. It still surprises and it impresses me, to think I'm a businesswoman. Like, I'm the founder of my company. I'm a company owner. I'm a director of the company. It's like I'm still a teacher, but you can be both things. And also what I've felt grateful for is, the support of good accountants, obviously, good teams around me. And it was very stressful in the beginning. Like, I can tend to be very detail oriented and I want things to be just right. And, I can imagine I'm not easy to work with sometimes and I'm pedantic. And I think it does get easier. It's a bit like, when you're running your first retreat or festival, the first year is mayhem and there's all these things that go wrong. And then it just gets easier. Or anything, being in the classroom, teaching a class for the first time versus teaching it the following year or 20 times later. So it's been really great, but I'm not sure, like, what surprised me. I think they're all good surprises.
It sounds like you've had a smooth journey, a relatively smooth journey, or you're certainly, the way you're telling it, it hasn't been too challenging for you. Are you supported by many of a team? Do you have anybody employed in the company?
So I have two assistants at the moment. One is working with me on my advanced course. So that's been absolutely incredible help. Another one is working with me on my first retreat in April that's coming up. So that's been brilliant. And also working through different dialects, to kind of enhance the course in different ways. I was working with another brilliant assistant who was helping me with my podcast and newsletters. And I think it's hard sometimes to let go of that control when you're kind of doing everything yourself and trying to keep all the plates spinning. I have a good marketing team, great accountants. So I think, being able to rely on people and trust people is very important. I think it's very difficult, teaching one-to-ones for the last few years and going out on my own, working for myself. I realized I haven't actually worked with people, despite working with loads of students and considering my job and my personality very people focused. It's a very different thing working with people, and delegating or.
So let's touch on delegating, actually. Do you find it difficult?
Definitely. I think, with what I do, I love the personal approach. So I don't want someone else to be pretending to be me writing back to emails or messages on social media. And that's a big chunk of time every day. In the course comments, people write their struggles or their questions, their doubts, and I respond to those. And I think with the business element, giving someone access to everything and like logging into my courses and issuing refunds or doing pricing and things like that, I think it is a struggle to delegate and to kind of trust someone else to do it as well as you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard a great saying actually last week. I was at an event last week for International Women's Day, and the lady on stage says, 80% done by somebody else is 100% friggin' awesome not done by me. So the point being that somebody else might only do it 80% to your standard, but you've done nothing to get that 80% other than delegate it. And that's all good. And I thought that was great because everybody has that same challenge, I think, that delegating tasks, never mind delegating responsibilities, because that's a completely different arena altogether. But delegating tasks can be hard if you know you can do it better yourself.
Definitely. And I think that's something I should let go a bit or work on. And also I think it's, doing more research, finding better people and, reaching for the stars, like just saying, I want the best of the best to work with me on this and that. Even if it seems outrageous, like just get in touch with whoever you admire and respect and say, I have so much more to learn. I don't want to be thinking, oh, I could have done that better. I want to be amazed at the work other people do and work with them. And yeah.
And do you have on that, looking to the strategic view, I think is what you've just touched on there, looking at the business from a strategic perspective, taking time to work on the business, not in the business. Do you carve out time in your week or month for that? Do you even, I'm sure you're incredibly busy. Do you get the time to work on your business at all?
I do actually, casually, I suppose. My husband is really good at analyzing businesses, and we have great conversations about, making things more optimized and future planning and thinking about what I really want to do. And it doesn't have to be what it looks like it's going to be. We don't have to take it that seriously, but it's also like there's so much potential there for what it could be. So just brainstorming and things like that have been really great. I think at the moment I'm so busy with writing the book, creating the advanced course and planning the retreat that I'm just like, racing towards the finish line. And then the latter half of this year, I think would be good to kind of go back, re-edit parts of the courses, think about next steps. Because when I think of my overall mission, it really is to envisage and experience Ireland as a bilingual country where Irish is spoken proudly and with pleasure by citizens. And the shame is, reduced, and we're working through that bewilderment to bilingualism. So what does that take? In my lifetime, it must be a total overhaul of the curriculum in schools, changes happening in the way it's taught, the way it's perceived, the way it's, the exposure of Irish in Ireland and around the world, and making it more part of that fun Irish brand. Like Ireland has one of the best brands in the world, friendly people, generous, kind, funny, storytelling people. And then Irish butter, the Irish pub, the GAA, they're all very positive, and the Irish language deserves that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're doing a great job. And I'm sure you'll continue to do that. What would your advice be for a business owner or a person that's just starting in business, especially in the area of social media, because you do that so well. And I know a lot of business owners really struggle with it.
Thank you so much. I think the main thing would be go for it. Like, absolutely go for it. Work hard, do it as well as you can. Don't worry about, I felt sad to let go of my one-to-one students, and I felt guilty, and I felt I can do it all. And then at some stage I had to just let them go and say, I need to preserve my time for creating something more sustainable. And even if it's a bit uncomfortable or awkward being online, it does work. Consistency, kills the doubt and the fear, and it creates a really strong kind of business. And talking with other people who have set up their own businesses, I feel like I can relate to them a lot more. And they say a similar thing. It's about having a bit of fearlessness and a bit of craziness, like just believing, not just believing, creating the pathway that it will work and doing everything in your power to make it work.
Mm-hmm. And I think pressing post and not thinking about it too much. Just, just hitting go. Because sometimes it's our own self-limiting beliefs, isn't it, that holds us back.
Definitely. And I think in terms of social media, there are so many things you can learn. There are simple strategies that you might not be aware of, but the internet is full of tools and resources and support. And even if you want to reach out to me or anyone else that you admire who's doing something that's garnering a lot of attention online, you can study that or ask them outright. Like, what are they actually doing there? You don't start a video with, hey, or I'm just popping on here. They're just time wasters. And you learn that over time. The first 3 seconds are integral to the reel, and a reel is better than a post, and a reel is better than a story. These kind of things you learn over time, but very valuable to growing your business on social media.
Yeah, it is consistency. And if you show up every day, you learn that, as you've already said. Talk to me about networking. How do you feel about networking? Do you network?
Yeah, I'm not one for going to events much to network, although I do love that kind of thing. But I have found I've met so many interesting people in the kind of Irish language, fresh, dynamic approach to Irish culture, music, etc. online, like through social media. And then I started my own podcast last January, and I felt, kind of a conscious pull towards certain individuals who I see doing things in a cool way. And then I interview them. And these conversations are a bit like networking. I feel like I have friends in these people. You know, we stay in touch after the conversation and I send them my courses and they update me on their events. Maybe they are, you know, psychologists or comedians or historians or whoever they are. And maybe that's the modern way to network. You know, of course, there's still lunches and conferences and things which are brilliant, but it's great also to be flexible online and to be able to have these conversations and get to know people. And it can be very mindful as well. You know, there are no distractions. You're not at a drinks thing with hundreds of people. You're just one-to-one, and you can reflect beforehand as well. What do I want to ask this person and what do I want to learn from them?
Mm-hmm. It can be very intentional, I think, but I mean, the most important element, of course, is recognizing the importance of talking to other people, learning from other people, learning from organizations and their journey. So, and I've learned a lot from you today, Mollie. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Mollie Guidera, founder of Irish with Mollie. Thank you. Gur míle maith.
Gur míle maith.
Thank you for listening to Real Business Conversations with Kenor. For more information on this episode, see the description area of this podcast or visit our website, kenor.com. Remember to press follow on your podcast player now so you'll get a brand new episode every single month. This podcast is produced by DustPod.io for Kenor Finance and Business Services.